Perfect. So let us start by introducing very briefly the situation and each of the characters that will go on an adventure today. Basically, you all have been summoned as members or agents of the organization that is in charge of the maintenance of peace and security in these lands called Esmeralda, and you have been summoned to actually one of the houses of parliament where the minister of defense is going to inform you that they intend to engage in an attack in self-defense against a neighboring nation to the east. And when you are heading there, let us go and introduce yourselves to everyone else.
Oh, well, I guess I should start. Well, it's very nice to meet everyone. I will be playing Investigator to Ale, as you probably know. I'm Alonso Gurmendi from Opinio Juris. And I am essentially a high elf rogue.
Okay, so as you all may or may not know, I am Tamsin Philippa Page. I'm at Deakin Law School, and I am playing Eusebellum. She's an Asimar monk, and has very firm views on right and wrong.
Right, yeah, I'll go next. Hi, I'm, for those of you who don't know, Alex Green. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of York, and I am playing the Lord Arbiter Modus Vivendi, who is an Asimar paladin. So just to sort of give you a mental image of this guy, right? He's 6 foot on the button. He's about 55 years old. He's got that salt and pepper hair, short back and sides, clean shaven as hell. The vibe he'd be giving would be sort of daddy, but it's ruined by the fact that he has this perennial expression of disinterested disapproval and like quite clearly a massive stick up his ass. So he wears this sort of long cloak and has a kite shield with the rules of arbitration written on the front. And he also carries a cane that he doesn't really need to lean on. He just thinks it looks cool.
I clearly didn't think this through enough.
I mean, I'm happy to give it a more detailed description of Eusebellum. She's, about 5'8", 5'9", not on the button, kind of very, very much blonde hair, green eyes, fit and trim because she's a monk. All she does is martial arts, and she has this overwhelming and optimistic enthusiasm and a clear sense of trust in her demeanor of authority figures.
Well, as far as I know, to Ale, from the little playthroughs we've done before, is annoying. He's very know-it-all, and he sort of thinks that he understands the world better than everyone else because he can see through, the structures of Faerun and stuff. So yeah, not. I hope not like me.
Okay, so I think I'm next. Probably you don't know me, but I'm Juliana Santos Carvalho. I am a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cambridge Center for Gender Studies. I am playing Real Law. I like to say law, but depending on your liberal inclinations, it can also be a Locke. But I am the magistratorial fellow, so your person in precarity from the party. I have a very strong belief on the organization and that the system works really well. I have a tattoo from the pyramid of Kelsen, and my magistratorial fellow is a halfling, and she's a mage. She carries a lot of books and also a diplomatic toolkit in her purse at all times. And she likes to say sorry a lot. And this I share with her. But she is just, trying to spread the good deeds of the organization and trying to, do things right in her first job as a magistratorial fellow. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you so much for
Maybe-
introducing yourselves. And finally, last and least, my name is Nicolas Carrillo Santarelli. I work in the University of Cagliari. And considering that I am the dungeon master in today's session, you may henceforth or are encouraged to address me as my lord, my liege, your supreme majesty, or anything like that. And I'm going to be the narrator.
Professor.
Indeed. I'm going to impersonate all the characters that are different from the player characters and also work as a rules arbiter in today's session. And as I said, you were summoned to the parliament of a very interesting republic. And this state, this country is called Pacta. Pacta is a very wealthy nation which gained its independence not that long ago, just a few years ago, from an evil colonizing empire. And you are someone that are actually, as your advisor, Lord Paddington informed you, the Minister of Defense, whose name is Talwe Explainer, is looking at you in the eyes, staring you very harshly. And just as he looks at you with a look of disdain on his face, this guy is a halfling, which means that he's not very tall. Think of hobbits, but he's wearing a suit, a tie. He has lots of perfume, so much so that whoever has any allergies is sneezing the whole time. And he stares at you and then waves his hand at you and looks at the audience, which is composed of politicians who are very nationalistic of the state of Pacta, and says, "Look, everyone, who arrived? Those from the international organization who pretend that they know more than we do what is good for the well-being of our nation. We are not going to be submissive. Rather, after all of these incidents in which all of our caravans have been attacked, stolen from, destroyed by none other than those fucking rebels of the neighboring nation of Servanda, we will engage in an action of self-defense. And we therefore," and he turns and looks at each of you, lowering his voice says, "Unless these attacks were to cease, we will immediately engage in an impressive, huge attack of self-defense against Servanda." Just to contextualize, and then I will give you the floor, Tamsin. A few years ago, after gaining independence from the same colonial empire, Pacta and Servanda, which were originally divided by the river of Sund, and these two states engaged afterwards in an armed conflict over resources, and the defeated state, which is Servanda, lost much of its territories in a peace treaty. So you were going to ask something?
My good lord, I need to understand this. Are you saying that your actions of self-defense would be righteous and overwhelming in their scale and volume, while also being defensive? And if these are righteous, I understand that, because the law is on the side of the righteous. But I would like to understand whether or not this is a righteous proclamation of defense or something else, because I am somewhat confused by your articulation here. Because if we are on the side of the righteous, then the law must be with us. But I would like to just be clear on that before we proceed with our investigation here, because it would seem that you are seeking support of the arbiters to address the situation before you have to do so. And let it be known that none may come before the arbiters unless they are coming with clean hands. So this must be clear ahead of time.
he bursts into laughter and says, "We are a sovereign nation. What use are international laws? What good are they for? They can only limit and tie our hands. What we are telling you right now is that we are tired of being harassed, of being expoliated and stolen by the rebels of Servanda. We have informed him repeatedly that they should, to the authorities, to the foreign government, that they should take care of their affairs. But no, they have proved time and again that they are both unwilling and unable to do anything. So, what I am telling you right now is that unless these attacks were to cease, unless we have assurances that these attacks would no longer take place, we will have to engage in self-defense. And so what? We have a shipment that is supposed to depart later today to send supplies and food to the towns and the villages in the mountains to the north. And if this, I promise you, if any of these shipments and cargo are affected, tomorrow, first time in the morning, Servanda will again taste our force. That I promise.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my good lord. I am not here to as you know, as an organization, we are here to basically try to understand. Try to understand what is happening in the situation. But if you're saying you need to act in self-defense, and as you know from the rules of our organization, we would have to actually report what you want to do for the central organ of that will assess your self-defense, whether it's being conducted in accordance to the rules of our organization. So what I'm trying to do here is see whether you'd be able to give us this information so we can send this report to our organization so they can assess whether your self-defense is actually being done in accordance to it. So I need information and I need to send this report. Would that be all right for you? No, I just want to know whether you would be able to allow us to get more information so we can send this information to the centralized body as a report so we can actually really assess that your self-defense is being done in accordance to the rules of our organization. That would be much helpful, sir.
Oh, really? Oh, and would you like me to serve it on a platter? And would you like me to serve some juice with it? That makes no sense. It is you who should provide us with information if you want to hold our hands. Unless we know a way to stop these attacks from happening, because as I said, the villages, our population that we are obliged to serve, are going to receive supplies. If they don't, this evening, tomorrow morning, boom, they will suffer. So that's up to you. Of course I will send a report, but that's all I can say. I don't want any other attack against any of our caravans. Okay, is that clear? Otherwise, boom, unwilling or unable state, they are going to suffer. Well, not the state, the rebels, of course, in their territory.
Yes,
So,
but
to-
we back
to-
up
to
here
ale-
to the offer of juice. I heard that there was juice and a platter. That would be lovely. Some pomegranate would be fantastic at this point in time as we get our briefing on what you would expect from us, and possibly maybe if it's okay, some bread and cheese with the pomegranate juice while we sort this out. Thank you for the offer. It's well appreciated. Your kindness and generosity is absolutely appreciated by the Holy Order.
The two-ale just leans next to the Lord Arbiter and goes like, "This is a waste of time. Can we just get on with our investigation? You have an investigator in your team."
Quite. I turn to the magisterial fellow and I just raise my eyebrow.
How is that juice coming along? But you could. I'm sorry, sir, but we cannot really guarantee that the attacks will not happen because we're a neutral organization. We're trying to conduct conversations with both parties, and we will do our uh, our best efforts to really try to talk to them so the situation does not escalate. We're here in the name of peace and security. So you have to believe that our mission is truly that of not allowing things to escalate.
Oh,
But the report will be most welcome, and a juice would be great to allow us to do our conversation better. But thank you, sir.
no, and thank you for enlightening me. I had no idea until today that neutral stands for useless. So indeed, such a
At this
useless...
point, I just cut across him in a really booming voice, and I say, peace and security at the level of international relations exists only by strict accordance to the rules. We are here to investigate this situation and ensure compliance. I pause probably slightly too long for effect. To the rules. Are we not? I turn again to the magisterial fellow, and I don't raise my eyebrow this time. I just like deadpan stare at her. And then I get out my notebook, which I'm using to record everything she says as part of her assessment process. And
Yes.
I hover my quill right above it.
Yes, that is all he said. I am with him 100%. That is correct.
So I'm happy to roll for
Magistrate.
like intimidation or something if you want.
Yes, please do. So,
Right.
roll for an intimidation check.
And I'm just trying to intimidate everybody.
Yes.
This isn't targeted at anyone in particular. Okay, it's all right. It's 11 on the die plus 1 for intimidation, so that's a 12.
Okay, so I am going to allow you to re-roll if you specify why the state of Pacta should be afraid of perhaps breaching the law. Would it have a reputational cause? Because these guys are really concerned about the well-being of their population who are not getting access to the supplies sent from the capital city.
Right, you want me to explain it to them?
Yes, to them.
All right.
Yes.
So the arbiter would probably say, it is in the long-term interests of Pacta to ensure stability in this region. Ongoing violations of the rule amounting to escalation of conflict would destabilize the region further.
So roll
Something
again.
almost-
That's good enough.
Yeah, that's not as good. So 12 stands,
The power of international law revealed.
So
pretty much.
the guy doesn't really seem that impressed, but then he looks at some of his advisors. He's running out of time because he has a speech to make. And he looks at you and says, "You are simply confirming that sticking to the so-called rules implies hurting our population needlessly when we have our own constitution and rules that do matter, unlike this nonsense thing called international law. So let me tell you what I know. Every evening..."
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
In a different understanding, we understand that we take it as given until proven otherwise that your cause is just and therefore the law is with you. Would it not be good for your nation to know that you have the support of the law and of justice on your side from an international level before going off and engaging in something that cannot be taken back, and making sure you have all of the facts right so that you are morally righteous in these actions? I'm happy to roll persuasion.
The guy stands with his mouth agape and roll for a persuasion check with advantage.
So first one was 13.
Yep.
With advantage is a natural 20 for a 23.
That is perfect. So as you say that, everyone else stops talking, the conversations die down, and everyone listens to that and turns to look at him. The man looks, shakes in an almost imperceptible manner, and says, "Certainly there is nothing to hide. Of course, of course. We are nothing if not gracious hosts, and the juice that you so required will be given, flowing endlessly to you. So let me tell you something. You will have indeed access to confirm and corroborate that what we are saying is true." So he gives you a report. And in that report, you can read that indeed every evening during which shipments are sent from the capital to the cities and the small towns, these caravans are attacked, that they do carry food supplies, and that precisely because this is the most bountiful land and area of the whole country of Pacta, these populations are suffering. According to the reports, and this is something important that you read in the reports, two interesting things happen. First of all, those who are driving or inside the caravans claim that they wake up, that they fell asleep mysteriously, and when they wake up, the caravans and their carts are empty. The supplies have gone. And there is a small dust that they all claim has been found inside either the carts or the surrounding areas after these thefts take place. Apart from this, they claim that they have seen footprints actually, going east towards the land of Servanda. So this is what they claim. Without failure, every single time a caravan has departed during the last month, such attacks take place. And one of them, and this is the last report, who failed to fall asleep, who managed to control his own body and remained awake, said that people that look like the people from Servanda, who are humanoids that resemble fish, was seen carrying the trunks and the chests from the carts. So this is what you know. And you also know that tonight, based on what Minister Talwe Explainer said, a final caravan will depart tonight. So you have all this information. You can investigate about the dust. Yeah.
Are we reading these reports in the Parliament as they're sort of handed over?
That is your choice. You can choose to do so later or at this moment. That's up to you.
Because, so when the report mentions dust,
yes,
do we have any sense of like whether this is like dust, like the dust bunnies you find under your sofa, or is this like mystical, magical, fairy
His
dust?
dark materials dust.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
So
Something like that.
Or possibly, like, surely the wizard can make an arcana check.
and apart from Juliana's Arcana check, anyone who so desires can roll for a history check as well.
I have proficiency in
Mine was 20.
history, so I'll do that.
Okay, very good.
And my history check has come in at a 14.
My
Okay.
history check is 18.
18. Very good. So, what both the Arbiter and Tuale kind of think of connecting the dots is the following. First of all, there is a long history or verbal tradition according to which, in the sole remaining forest in Servanda, there are some trees that are called the borrachon trees, from which some kind of particles and flowers fall to the ground, and whoever stays next to those trees falls asleep. So many people say that they are just stories concocted by drunkards who wanted to tell their families that they fell asleep as a result of being close to those trees. but maybe there is some truth in this regard. And of course, there is nothing ordinary about the so-called dust found there. Based on the description, indeed, you think that maybe these are produced after grinding some material, some flowers, based on the scent that is described in the report. And yeah, that's what you kind of conjecture.
Yeah, I lean down to the magisterial fellow and whisper in her ear, use of arcane substances on sentient beings is prohibited under the 1782 Accords, subparagraph B of Article 38.
Do I hear this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying it to her so she knows. I'm not like trying to hide it from everybody else.
Okay, then I said, but let us remember to be culturally sensitive about practices that aren't our own, please.
I roll my eyes again, very, very visibly.
At this point in time, Eusebellum is not actually seeing the relevance of the larger pictures of morality to this discussion about prohibition of conjecture. So she's just looking for the juice.
Which is
Juice for
given
juice.
to her.
Please give this woman some juice.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll never get at the end of it.
She is given plenty of it. So based on that information, what do you decide to do? Do you fold your arms, go in?
Magistrate, wouldn't the best option be for us as, you know, the investigator, the Lord Arbiter, the militant defensive arm of the Guild of Arbiters, and yourself as the magistratorial fellow who has to make decisions about what is happening here at the law, given that we are seeing an evening pattern of attacks on supply caravans, should we not just follow the next supply caravan and attempt to witness what is going on ourselves so that justice may prevail?
Yes, I 100% agree. I think we should definitely follow that. And as I have done with the investigator 2Ale in our last mission, I do have some vests that I have embroidered just for us with the signal of our organization, so we can follow that very visibly.
Excuse me, magistratorial fellow, I'm sorry, I need to intervene. As we have already discussed, as part of our investigation, we need to be discreet. Last time we already got into a bit of a kerfuffle, so we should probably just not wear the uniforms, as pretty as they are.
Hang on, Mr. Investigator. First of all, kerfuffles are what I live for. So this is I am good with a kerfuffle in the name of the law and justice. It's what I live for. These are fists of righteousness before you. Second of all, do these vests come in purple, possibly with like a floral flower crown? That would be really lovely.
I have my embroidery kit. If you want, I can do that.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. Can we have purple and some flower crowns while we bring about fists of justice?
Yes,
We're all gonna get killed.
But I'm just saying, Investigator 2Ale, that with these vests, it's not that we're not being discreet. We're cloaking ourselves with objectivity. And I'm pretty sure that the parties will understand and appreciate that we're being objective. What do you all think?
I go like, objectivity is a myth, but just to myself.
Objectivity is irrelevant in the face of righteousness and justice and moral purity, investigator, sir.
I look very longing to the confirmation and maybe appreciation of Lord Arbiter of my efforts, my extra efforts in sewing this all by myself. So, Lord Arbiter, what do you think about the vests? Aren't they really something that encapsulates the principles in the preamble of the convention that you just mentioned?
I look at the vests. I pause. And then I say, I do not wear vests. However,
Okay.
it is only appropriate that we signify our presence.
Yes.
So I take the vest and I tie it around the horns of my kite shield and sort of pull it over the bottom so that the Arbiter's symbol is stretched over the face of the shield. And then I say, law as ever is our best defense. And then I look around expecting everybody to be super impressed by that.
Fists of righteousness, Lord Arbiter. Righteous fists of justice are with you.
I
The
look
law,
horrified.
the law is based upon the righteous fists of justice and morality.
So
That
I go
my
like, I
eyes
put the,
narrow a little bit. But, you know,
Isabella doesn't even notice. She's just like happy we've got a plan. We're going out, we're going forth, and she gets to go about being righteous. That's all she's happy about. And there was juice and meat and cheese and bread in the meantime while these people debated niceties.
I put the vest like on my shoulder with zero intention of wearing it, just to keep the Lord Arbiter off my back and say like, okay, shall we go then?
Yeah, I Isabella will put the vest on, make sure it fits over her robes, and will then, using her staff that creates some flowers, will weave a flower crown that matches the vest and put it on her head as we're walking out.
That's very good. And just one question before you so proceed. Do you inform the headquarters about what you are intending to do?
Yes.
You-
Right.
how
Yusa was not even thinking about that, but that's why she's just here as the muscle.
so I mean, like, what's the mechanism? So out of character here, what's the mechanism for us getting in touch with our headquarters? Like, do we have some sort of magical communication, or do we have to just like write them a letter and send a runner?
That's correct, the
How
latter.
far away are they?
The latter, but that would be very quick. Actually, the very same day they would receive, because there is a delegation inside the city of Patchem, by
Right.
the way. Yes.
Right. Well, then I absolutely would not do that. What I would do instead is observe to see whether the magisterial fellow takes that step.
Yeah. I think, as a character, I think I would be way too excited about the vest and maybe forget to send the letter.
Okay, that's great.
I definitely make note
Roll
of
for
that.
clumsiness.
I definitely make note of that. And then I ask to Whale if he will send the letter anyway.
I go like,
But I
of course
wait
I
until the
will.
last possible moment, and then I do it really loudly and really obviously in front of the magisterial fellow while writing in my notebook.
Okay. Okay.
Very good.
We exchange a look with the Lord Arbiter as like, oh my god.
Dude, these guys are so toxic. Okay, sure.
So you embark and go alongside the caravan, plainly seen by any observer that would be there as agents of the organization. Therefore, there would be no question of whether eventually, if there is combat that breaks out, there would be perfidy or anything. No, you just plainly appear as agents of the organization, and all of a sudden something happens. How do you proceed? Do you walk alongside the carts that are pulled by donkeys? Do you enter or remain inside the carts? What do you do? How do you proceed, and what's your marching order?
I have some very important strategic questions here. Do the caravans have their own guards?
They do, yes.
Okay, great. So, noting that the caravans have their own guards, I am actually proposing to the Magistrate Fellow and Lord Arbiter that we stay like maybe kind of about 30 or 40 feet behind the caravan as observers, in a position to step in should something occur, but not directly involved if the caravan, if there is an initial incident. Since they have their own guards, and we're not here to guard the caravan, we're here to ensure the peace if the peace does not ensure itself.
Very good. And do you do so in plain sight, or do you try to stealthily conceal yourselves in any given manner?
Isabellum has no concept of the idea of stealth.
Okay.
She has her staff, she has her flower crown, she has her robes, her jaunty vest, and she is whistling a tune and walking behind the caravan, quite ready and keeping herself well limber, eager at the opportunity of dispensing some motherfucking justice.
And she won't have to wait long for that to happen, because
Just to be
indeed,
clear, I'm like lookout on a more strategic vantage point, trying to like be in a rogue, trying to like not appear as part of the delegation and not wearing my vest.
you are not wearing your vest. Okay.
No, I'm trying to blend in on the sides of the road because like I think this is way too obvious, and so I expect the worst.
So you can roll for a stealth check, and everyone else, how do you
there you go,
react to that? To the fact that he's not wearing any distinctive emblem of the organization?
I walking very happily beside Yusa, almost frolicking, but trying to keep it together.
Yes.
But I do nudge at her and say, I don't see too well anywhere. Do you see him? I don't know. Where is he? That's getting me worried.
I rolled a
Okay,
19 for stealth, so
19.
Yeah, my passive perception, I've got no idea.
No.
I'm sure he's doing the right thing. He is a part of a group. He is a part of a group of the arbiters.
Mm-hmm.
He is part of our organization. He knows that the rules are grounded in righteousness and goodness, and he would clearly be doing the right thing and following them. I do not have any concerns about his conduct because we have no evidence to suggest otherwise.
Okay. I look at her as if I want to be her best friend. I'm like, yes.
I am
yes.
quite, and Yusa is quite certain in this, that clearly, as a member of the organization of arbiters that we are representing in the international sphere, that there is no possibility, even remote, that Tuail could be doing the wrong thing because he knows that we represent the right thing.
there's no way that Tuail can do the wrong thing. Sounds amazing.
I am compulsively checking the manifest of the caravan to make sure that what they've said is in each cart is in fact in each cart.
Very good. You do so.
Yusa, once again, also doesn't believe that anyone would actually falsify a manifest because they say that they are doing the right thing, and she is trusting of that because she has no evidence otherwise. And so she's just whistling and kind of wandering along quite happily, but ready to, engage in delivering some righteousness.
I have a perfect mental image of this right now.
Yeah, and me too. And actually everyone else does. And it doesn't take long before something happens. Because as everyone marches with their torches, you see that everyone seems in a state kind of paranoia, because the guards are whispering to each other, saying things like, the ghosts of the war maybe are the ones that are making everyone fall into a deep slumber, or we are being punished for what we did to the state of Servanda years ago when, in the war, we took over the best of their lands and the most fertile valleys. And as that happens, indeed, you see chaos erupt. All of a sudden, from the trees that are alongside the main road, a dust that sparkles a little bit falls down on the caravan and all of those next to it. Everyone falls into a deep slumber, and you see that from the trees some creatures jump over and fall on the road or next to it. They look something like this, like the fish creatures, fish humanoids that, as I said, are most of the inhabitants of the neighboring land of Servanda. And they start to, without hurting the guards and the other persons that walked alongside the caravan, they tie them down with ropes and they notice all of you except for Twail and glare at you. And they mumble something saying like, "Leave us alone." They expect you to not meddle.
I think I just, adjust my vest. I try to approach them, and I have a detect language to try to understand what they're saying.
Okay, that's very good.
Out of character, are they speaking common just through their fishy mouths?
They
So, like, can we So they are speaking common. Great.
They are speaking common, but just a few words, because you
Okay.
hear another language that you do not comprehend. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Halt! In the name of righteousness and the law, brigands, and step forth, put the staff down, and step into like this, and then into a Muay Thai stance. So just pull back, ready to go. Halt, brigands.
Very good.
Yeah, I'll step forward and stand next to her.
So you stand next to her. Okay, I need everyone to roll for an initiative check. So initiative is rolled to see who acts first during a potential combat scenario. And they don't roll that well, actually. Yep.
I rolled a 22.
You did. Okay, 22.
I've
Mine
got a
was a
16.
So let's see. The one that rolled the higher was Alonso with a 22. Then who rolled a 16? Tamsin. 16.
Isabellum.
Eusebellum. Okay, then we have a 10 from Mr. Positivist. And the
And I have
Arbiter?
I have 15.
15. Okay.
Wait, but they're already fighting us? I thought they were like saying
No,
leave us
it's
alone.
a potential combat scenario. So
Okay.
the first one, that is the quickest to react, hiding in the shadows, is Twail. And what does he do?
But no one's attacking me, right? They're like
Not
saying
yet.
leave us alone.
No, they are stealing things from the caravan. They made everyone fall asleep, and they are in a hostile manner, looking at everyone else, the agents of the organization.
Okay.
So,
okay.
just to clarify, we can see them stealing stuff.
You
Like,
do.
they're not just not these people out there taking this stuff.
Yes, you see them stealing stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're clearly morally corrupt, and we need to, engage in some justice.
I look at
Noting for all of our viewers, I personally don't believe that, but use as a simple gal.
Can I then? Is there a way that I can like move towards? How many are they? How many of the fish people are there?
There are 3 fish people.
3 fish people. Okay. I'm not sure about the mechanics of this, but what I want to do
Yes.
is to like gain the. I can see that Eusebellum, like I know my people,
Yes.
and I know that she's like just waiting for an excuse, and I'm thinking this is gonna get out of control, and it's gonna be a problem, and like I need to fix this because like I'm the most qualified because they haven't seen me, and I'm awesome. So what I want is to find a strategic fish person, either
Yes.
closest to me or the one who looks like the leader or something, and be on a position where like I'm either like with like grabbing him with a knife or something, or like pointing at him with my bow, or anything that might do a everyone calm down or I open fire.
Okay.
We just and say we just want to we need to understand what is going on here. This is not yours. What are you doing?
Okay, so I need you to do 2 things. The first of which is rolling an intimidation check.
Okay, so intimidation is okay, 8.
you do so, you point your arrow at them. There is no one of which stands out as a potential leader. They are actually wearing the same garbs, the same outfits. They all look very haggard, dragged down. They look even somewhat weak. And as you point the arrow at them menacingly, they kind of enter into a frenzy and you see them start to react. You don't. What's your passive insight, everyone, by the way? What are your
15.
18?
15.
15. 15 is very
I'm
good.
13.
13 is not sufficient.
But we're playing with level 2 characters, right?
Yeah,
Pause.
but that's
Yeah, mine
not
is-
depending on the level. Yeah,
Minus 13.
13. Okay. And
Garbage. My passive insight is garbage.
Remembering that I'm a monk with proficiency in insight and lots of wisdom, not so much intelligence.
so what Jusabellum notices, and she is the only one to do so, is that all of a sudden these creatures become very nervous. They become very nervous, agitated, and they hesitate. They are uncertain as to how to proceed or how to behave now. They look both afraid but losing control of their own emotions based on what Mr. Tuwail has just done. And then the next one is precisely Eusebellum. So what does she do?
She steps up in between Tuail and the clearly frightened fish people and says, "Surrender, and we guarantee you will not be hurt, and we'll get to the bottom of this. Because while you are committing crimes, did not Sir Hippo say that an unjust law is no law at all?"
So roll for a persuasion check.
That triggers the Lord Arbiter so much, that phrase, that he actually gets like a visible tick in his eye.
It's a 9. It's not good. I did not roll well on that persuasion check.
Not good at all. And the creatures look at each other and they mumble because, as you have noticed, this is not the language that they are fluent in. And they say, criminals, we know criminals, we know jail going to. And then they turn very hostile. And what does precisely the arbiter do afterwards?
It's me, no?
That's you.
Not
The
the-
magisterial fellow
Yeah.
next, not the
Well,
arbiter.
I am slightly panicky with the whole situation. I am trying to record everything, and I just keep saying, "Sir, sir, speak to me. I cannot understand. Try. What language are you speaking, sir, sir, sir?" And I the more nervous I get, the more I ask them to talk to me.
You said that you were going to cast the spell called Comprehend Languages, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So what you hear once you cast it now during your turn is the following. The creatures learn fluently in their own language, which you recognize as the native language of the neighboring nation of Servanda, say, "We are very hungry. After the war, when all of our ecosystems were destroyed by Pacta's weapons, we can no longer grow crops properly in our lands. This is the only way in which we can feed ourselves and reclaim what is rightly ours. We will report to the general, and we cannot allow ourselves to be taken as captives. We are not going to be tortured by Pacta or this fucking organization." And that's what they say. That's what you understand. And then they say, "We have to attack them and then flee back to the secret headquarters." That's what you understand that they say. And they do not react.
We understand that too?
None of you does. Only she. She's the only one. So yeah.
We see her cast the spell, right?
You do, yes. You do, because indeed this spell has the different components. You see her waving her hands, speaking some incantations, and using some materials. Yeah. Yes. And afterwards, it's a turn of positivism. Will legal positivism save the day, maybe?
Firstly, it's Lord Arbiter to you. But what? So was Alok translating for the rest of us as she heard this?
That's up to her.
Well, that's what I was asking.
I'm very concentrated in trying to like cast the spell correctly. And I'm trying to understand exactly what they're saying and trying to transcribe because I am saving it so I can actually talk to my party afterwards. Maybe not to Whale, but definitely use something. I'm sorry. But
Okay.
definitely
But
because
what I'm hearing is that you're busy recording it and you haven't told us what they've said.
no, I haven't told them.
And I'm like this, right?
I haven't told them because I am seriously trying to concentrate on this spell because I learned
And
it
Yusa
last
has
class.
like the superhero pose in between your arrow and the fish people.
Yes. So that's what I'm trying to do. But I'm trying to record everything so I can consult with people later because I am conflicted.
In which
And
case,
also, this is very hard. It requires very specific gestures.
in which case, without having heard any of that, or at least understood it, how sure am I that these are representatives of Savanda? Like, based on how they look?
Based on how they look, they are.
I can do a history check if you want, or something like that.
I was about to tell you something like that, so yes,
Yeah.
please do roll for a history check.
I am
Is there an effective control test?
I'm not sure at all.
Okay.
I'm not sure at all. In which case,
Yes.
what would I do in this situation? So in this case, what I would probably do is, and we can't see any obvious ringleader or anything like that.
No, you cannot.
I would, and are they still? So just give me a sense of where they're positioned in relation to us. So one of them has an arrow pointed at them, and one of our friends right next to them.
Yes, so Tuale is pointing an arrow at them. What they have are nets, and apart from some nets that they are carrying, one of them has a pouch from which you presume that the dust was thrown at the members of the caravan. And aside from that, they are carrying weapons, but they all carry the same weapons, which is a spear apart from the nets that they are carrying attached to their shoulders. So they are wearing a uniform that seems actually very rudimentary. It's nothing sophisticated. It has an insignia on it, which you actually do not recognize. And it rings a bell. There is something that you know, but it's on the tip of your tongue, but at the moment you cannot tell exactly what it represents, because you can notice and you do know that it is related to Servanda. But exactly how is something that eludes you at the moment.
Okay, in that case, sorry, just two more questions. Firstly, how many of them are there?
3 of them.
3, okay. And are there weapons pointed at us?
At the moment, their weapons are pointed exclusively against Whale.
Oh, right, but that is one of us.
None of
Right,
the
okay.
other, yes. Although
Yeah,
he does
he's
look
one of us,
different
right,
from you
absolutely.
based,
So-
yeah.
That settles it. Right, so at that point, I take, I walk about 5 feet towards them,
Yes.
and I say, we are authorized to act in self-defense when threatened. And I bang my cane on the ground and use a bonus action to transform it into a longsword, which I then bring up and point just the nearest one. And I cast the command spell on them, and I just say, grovel.
Okay. So let's see how well they roll. So you tell the creature grovel.
Yeah.
And at first you see that the creature shakes a little bit, is going to bend downwards, and then resists and says, defend, we defend ourselves. And it is their turn now. And so what the creatures do is that they divide their attention. Two of them keep looking at Twail, and the other remaining one looks at Modus Vivendi. And this one is the first to act. So he says something that only the magistrate, Ariel Fellow, understands at the moment. And the magistrate hears that this creature says, now the organization is working for Pacta. Now all of the empire of the law is used against the peoples and their freedom and self-determination. International law is being used to not allow us to be free. What the government in exile says, it's true. And then this creature comes closer, running against the Arbiter, and tries to hit him with his spear. And he fails to do so. So the Arbiter very quickly evades the attack because of how uneasy and nervous this fish creature is like. He's not fully in control of himself. And then the other two ones look at each other, and the first one throws a net, runs and throws the net against Twail. So, what is your armor class, Twail?
Hold on. So it's 2 ale, not Twail. I don't know what Twail is, but like
2 ale?
My armor class is 14.
It is 14. So the first time the creature throws a net at you, you very easily evade that attack, but the second one you do not. So the net falls on top of you, distracted by the first one. You cannot see the other ones incoming, and it falls on you, and your movement is restricted. So now you are restrained, and you are, yes, restrained and held down by that net. And it is once again you who acts. So what do you do now? You are restrained. You can try to free yourself or do something
What happened
different.
to my bow and arrow?
Your bow and arrow they fall to the ground because you are not full. I mean, you cannot really hold anything with your hands at the moment.
Anything, not even like I do have a short sword and a rapier
Yes.
that I can like try and equip to like.
Yes, you can try
Out of
to
the-
grab it. Yes.
Okay, so let me roll for strength because that way I don't need to get my weapon out. So strength was 15.
It is good enough. So you get rid of the net, you throw it over, and you are once again free.
Once I'm like I remove the net and say and like shout at the fish people. You all we want to do is understand what is going on. We are not looking for a fight, but we can certainly end one. Explain yourselves in detail. Because we are here. So we are here in the to understand the context of this complicated region, and I know that the magisterial fellow understands, right? So please explain yourself to the magisterial fellow now, or face the consequences.
They look at each other once again and say, fight, consequences, and that's what they do. And then, what will Eusebellum do?
Just gonna.
Eusebellum is going to use Bello. So, they have attacked us. The Magister, the Lord Arbiter is well armed and armored, and he can take care of those ones. But Tuail's an investigator. That's not on, and who knows what they're going to do to the Magisterial Fellow. So I'm So Isabella positions herself so that she's engaging both of them, ones that aren't fighting the Lord Arbiter, and engages in a non-lethal unarmed strike, so intentionally non-lethal.
Yes.
Unarmed strike against one of the two that stayed focused on Tuail.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, roll for it.
21.
Which evidently hits, and now roll for the non-lethal damage.
Only 3. However, as my bonus action, I am going with a flurry of blows. So that will be 2 more Fists of Fury, Fists of Righteousness. There is no fury here apart from righteous fury against those who have breached the peace. So only a 10 on the first one.
Which is not good enough to hit.
The other one is another 21. So for 4 more damage. So that's 7 damage in total to one of them, while staying in position to be threatening the other one in melee combat.
So you hit that one, and what you notice is that these creatures feel as if they were being very weakened. They feel familic. They actually do not resist that much. The blows that any other kind of creature accustomed to fighting or being a combatant, as they claim they are, would withstand, is something that they they take very badly. The creature almost faints, and it's wheezing for a while, looks at the friends and says, "Help!" And what the magistrate hears is that they say that this is the first time they have met such resistance, because usually everyone else just falls asleep, and with the material that is extracted from the only remaining forest in Cervanda by the company. That's what they say. And then that creature tries to protect himself more than attack, and gives way for the arbiter to do something. So what will you do? Keep on?
Is it the magistrate next?
It's the magistratorial fellow. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, not the arbiter yet. Yeah.
So what I do first, I look at my party, I wave, and I say, "All right, they're not angry, they're just hungry." And then I try to, I'm close to one of them, right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I try to explain to him in their own language that I understand, and I keep saying like that I understand that the organization, etc. But while I do that, I cast sleep. So I can try to make him fall asleep while I try to explain everything that we're doing.
Yes.
So make him groggy so he understands.
That's very good. So you can cast sleep,
exactly.
And sleep is a spell that can cover an area. So it's not necessarily a single creature. So what you have to do is to roll for the points of creatures that will fall asleep.
Please let the arbiter fall asleep now.
24?
24. Okay, that's good enough. So you cast the spell, and as you do that, one of the creatures, that one that seemed more wounded because of the attack that it suffered, falls asleep, and so does the other one. There is only one fish creature remaining, and as soon as that happens, the creature raises his or her hands, and as they raise their hands, what does now, I think it is Lord Arbiter's turn to act. What does he do?
So the one that's raising its hands, is that the one engaged in combat with me?
That's correct.
So it's surrendering. Right, okay. Well, I turn my cane, sword back into cane, and then I grab it by the throat.
Okay.
and I lift it up and push it against the caravan. I cast command on it again, and I say confess. And then I turn to look at the magisterial fellow.
That's very good. And because of that being such a clever move, I'm going to give you inspiration. So whenever you want to, you can choose to do that. I'm going to roll for the 11 wisdom saving throw, which the creature fails, and therefore confesses everything in a manner that only the magistrate understands. And basically, what the creature says is that following the orders of the government in exile, which is located in the territory wrongfully claimed by Pacta, they are from such a place operating in order to gather food and send it back to the people of Servanda who are in dire need of such means of subsistence. And afterwards, the creature claims that they are engaging in a war of liberation and that what they simply want to do is to bring things back to the way they were, because the treaty, the peace treaty between Pacta and Servanda, according to the president in exile, which you have no idea about because there is only one president of Servanda that you know of, that this treaty is an unequal treaty that therefore is invalid. And they say that, and of course, you learn not only about their claims of invalidity of the treaty separating or establishing the new frontier, but also about the fact that there is a supposed government in exile operating from within lands that, according to the treaty, would belong to Pacta, which would explain why they have so easily attacked the different caravans. But this is something that only the magistrate understands.
Okay.
Very quickly, while that's being confessed, Eusebellum is going to secure the two unconscious prisoners so that they can't escape.
Very well. And there is one final piece of information. And the creatures say that it is one company, the West Esmeraldian Company, that is providing the dust that is extracted from the remaining forest in Servanda, with which the caravans are attacked or ambushed so that the guards are incapacitated.
Okay. I look at my party. I try to explain to them everything that all of the notes that I've been doing in a hurry. But there's one thing that I try to tell them, that because of the translation, I don't know whether they said war of liberation or war of preparation. It's something weird in the translation. I really don't know, but it is something there. But I try to explain everything else. It's well explained, but this slight problem in the translation that I don't know.
So,
Okay.
Tuail sort of is sort of frustrated by this because he looks at the magisterial fellow and says, "Oh, but there's a huge difference between a war of liberation that might lead to some disassembling of the injustices that have befallen this area, or a preparation for war, which may be just yet another violent process with no ulterior purpose. So we really need to understand this better."
Yeah,
I
then cut in and say, that is an incorrect interpretation of the law. All force in international relations is unlawful. There are no exceptions other than that of self-defense. The salient question is whether or not these individuals, and I cast and he looks around and he just has this expression of complete disgust on his face. These individuals, the salient question is whether or not they represent the state of Servanda. If not, then they are simply criminals and must be treated as such under the laws of Pacta. If they do, that falls within our jurisdiction and it is a breach of the rules.
My Lord Arbiter, I question your interpretation of the prohibition on the use of force. Surely there must be an interpretation that allows for the downtrodden and those harmed by the gross injustices of the powerful, noting that the organization would never condone nor support such injustices for, we serve righteousness and goodness, and the hierarchy would never permit any sort of otherwise work on our behalf. Surely there is scope within that for that which is just to be brought about through war when there is no other choice. Surely, otherwise, we would not have my branch of the organization whose job it is to maintain the peace so law can be the process.
Out of character question, just to remind myself, the fish people come from the country that used to be Pacta's colonizer, right?
Both of the countries, both Pacta and Servanda, were colonies of a former empire. And after they gained independence, they had a war amongst them. And the losing side, which was Servanda, lost most of its territory under the treaty. So the most bountiful lands are now in the power of Pacta. And they claim that this treaty is unequal, according to what this fish creature is saying.
Right, but but we still don't know if this fish people actually represent.
That's correct. So far, they have just said that there is a government in exile. Whether it's the legitimate government or not is something you don't know yet.
So in that case, I interject and say, I think you are both missing the point here. Clearly, we know that not everyone in Pacta or Sund are fish people. And they are trying to understand, in a completely different way of understanding, rules that don't necessarily apply to their own lived experience. So we have created
law is
a border.
Universal.
No, it's not universal.
Morality and the law are one and the same, and they come from the entirety of the gods and the universe. What blasphemy is this?
We have created a border on top of a people's land. It's as if we have decided that some sort of colonial border should decide the fates of people that have nothing to do with the two states involved. These may not be Pactans or Servandas. They may be something else. And we are imposing on them a border that is clearly leading to violence. This is what we're here to investigate. Who are these people?
Just so you know, while this discussion is happening, I'm not paying attention because I'm just looking at the dictionary so I'm trying to see whether it was liberation or preparation. So whatever they're saying, yeah. Please, Lord Architect.
But to Ao, what do you mean the law is not universal? What heresy are you trying to roll upon us?
I do not think that you can say that rules that were created in our own lands for our alliances in this organization can certainly apply to our helpful fish people here.
But all of the principles that underpin all of those rules that you say were just created are ordained by the gods.
Oh,
who are you to say that?
Pointless. Look, we have an institutional role, which is to maintain peace under the rules. The peace treaty between Pacta and Servanda has been duly executed. I literally take a copy of the treaty out of my...
of course you have one.
And I put it in front of the magisterial fellow.
And in that treaty, what you spot, and that's very clever, is both that the principle of uti possidetis juris was invoked, and that border was slightly modified after the war.
And I say, this was duly executed by the governments recognized as representing these states. It is not our place to question either the context or the justice of that agreement, simply to enforce it. Were this my mission, I would have made that decision, and I turned and raised my eyebrow at the magisterial fellow again, about 20 minutes ago. However, it is not. It is yours, and I am merely observing. So the decision is yours to make.
But Lord Arbiter, as Saint Hippo decreed all those years ago, an unjust law is no law at all. How dare you say we not be interested in the justice of the question here? That goes against the words of the gods and of the saints. Great Saint Hippo from August said
Right,
that.
and my mentor was there helping to draft this provision. Believe me when I say this law exists. And I really, like, ostentatiously hand the treaty to the magisterial fellow, and then, like, I just turn away and watch our captives to make sure they don't escape or anything.
Yes, and you look at them, and the moment before the spell finishes, what the magistrate hears is the following. And one of the fish creatures tells her, "The puppet government in Servanda does not really represent us, the people. They serve foreign interests of submission. As the company is telling us, if we take up the means, we will be able to carve the future that we deserve. This treaty that they invoke is non-existent because it's an unequal treaty." And then the next words that come out of its mouth are incomprehensible for you.
Okay. First, I take the treaty that was given to me. I'm kind of in the shock because I was still in the translation sort of concentration. I look at it and then I hear it, what the fish person is saying, and I just don't know what to do. It's just like I see the treaty is very concrete, and I see the two signatures, and I'm just like, and then I just look extremely confused, and I'm like, I really don't know what to do. I have no idea. Maybe, I look at my party and I'm like, what they're saying to me is that this treaty is not valid, and I know that we have done this before. We have seen treaties that are not valid before. But I just don't know what to do in order to investigate whether this treaty is okay or not. Maybe we should write a letter to their government to see a referendum. I don't know whether this is in our power to do.
I mean, it's a matter of history. We would know whether or not stuff like that had taken place, right?
A referendum has not taken place. After the war, the losing side simply had the general that was leading the forces back then, who grudgingly signed the peace treaty. Yes. And the claims were that Servanda initiated the conflict. Others said that it was really Pacta. So that is blurry. It's kind of uncertain at the moment. But what you do know with full certainty is that, well, it's quite late. And maybe after midnight, if the defense minister sticks to his word, maybe there is going to be a war if you do not come up with a possible diplomatic or legal solution. So do you go back to the capital city of Pacem? Do you do something else? Do you go to the headquarters of these fish people? What do you do before a conflict erupts?
While they're discussing that, Yusa, since the prisoners are well contained by the Lord Arbiter, they haven't taken off with the goods. Yusa is just going to start waking up caravan people and saying, wake up, repack your goods, take them to where they need to go, carry on then.
And they do that, yes.
I think I talk to the party and I say, well, I really do think we should try and talk to the headquarters of these fish people. Like what they told me is that they're really hungry, that they have like a de facto government, and like even if it's a de facto, we really should like get as much information as possible to send to our own organization. Like we need to really assess whatever is happening. Like the more information we have, better.
Magistrate, am I to understand that they are claiming that they are acting in response to great injustice?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you please impress upon them that while we are sympathetic to their injustice because the law does not suffer injustice, the law requires that they seek recourse and justice from us with clean hands, and regardless of the injustice, for us to act clearly, they need to cease their own criminal acts in order for us to be able to respond to their pleas for justice when they are coming to us suddenly with clean hands, rather than those that have been sullied by criminality and moral failing.
You have a point, and I think like maybe because like here for the caravan we actually had like all of the authorization, and maybe like to go to their headquarters that would require another form. I don't know whether we have the correct form.
Justice knows no paperwork.
But I need the paperwork. Maybe what if we just like with all the notes, what we could do is I can publish this, right? And I think we've done our job. I don't know.
I cutting impatiently. Like, we have no time for forms. What we need right now is to understand if what we're dealing with is two states fighting each other, or if we have a population that requires the protection of our institution. And for that, we need to understand what they are doing, who they are, who they're acting on behalf. And if I understand this correctly, then eventually we just need to ensure that they receive additional rights and protections as a community that is neither Pactan or Suntian. And this is something that we can only do if we take action now before any kind of war breaks out. We need to determine these communities' exact nature, and then we can decide what we do with the Pactans.
On this, I agree with the left hand. Agreement is everything. The question is, to whom are we seeking to address a possible agreement? Because
agreement is not justice.
We need to speak to somebody. The question is to whom we should speak. Should we be speaking to whoever is organizing this rebel group, this general, somewhere in this territory? Is that who we should be seeking to find? Should we be addressing ourselves to the recognized government of Sabanda? Or should we be addressing ourselves to this company that was mentioned, whatever that might be?
I think that now that I'm thinking twice, I think we should first go to the official government, because they're the ones that actually talk to our organization. They're the ones that are recognized by our organization. So if I go to the general, that would be good for information and maybe cultural sensitivity. But then I would actually send a message to the whole Faerun that I support de facto governments or insurgencies, and that's not going to look good on my file. That's not something.
They will be biased against them.
But
of course, they're not gonna give us a proper view of who they are.
There's a system that I really cannot, mess up. Yes, Lord Arbiter.
DM, actually, I wanted to check sort of both in and out of character.
Yes.
Just tell us something about our organization, if that's all right. So obviously the arbiters are brought into a particular conflict or potential conflict by virtue of the consent of the parties involved, right?
That's correct.
But are we also authorized to negotiate with non-state entities?
Well, what you are authorized to do is to act in furtherance of your mandate. And in this
Right.
case, the mandate is about bringing back the peace and stability in
Okay.
this area. Yes.
Grand. In which case, I would then say to the magisterial fellow, as it were, in character, I would say, we are authorized to use judicial discretion in this matter when it comes to the question of parties to negotiate with. If it is your judgment that we would be better served talking to the potential non-state entities involved, you are authorized to make that call.
In
understand.
this instance, Magistrate, I am inclined to agree with the Lord Arbiter. Justice demands we understand whether these are petty criminals or righteous freedom fighters battling injustice. And the only way to discover that is to discover who they are.
I understand that. But my career's on the line. If I get fired because of this, I am going to hunt you down. Just kidding. I'm not going to hunt you down. I need your letters of recommendation for my promotion. So please bear with me. Okay. If all of you three are saying that we should go talk to the de facto government and the commander, we should do so. But in my report, I will say very clearly that we only did this out of information, and that this conversation does not whatsoever imply that our organization recognizes them as any kind of governmental authority. Is that all right for you?
I'm literally taking out my notebook and writing down what you're saying. And when you're like talking about caveats, I'm just, the first time you've ever seen this guy smile. He just looks so happy.
Okay.
User is just looking somewhat confused at all of this legalese and procedure. It's like, but justice is what matters here. And as far as it's clear that she thinks that justice can be achieved by punching people enough.
At that point, right, I walk over to the one of them that's still awake, right? Mm-hmm. I lift them up by the scruff, put them against the caravan again, and say, take me to your leader.
Now you have to roll Lord Arbiter for an intimidation check to see whether this fish creature takes you to their leader.
Okay. Do I want to use my investigation on that? What is my intimidation?
Hang on. Given the circumstances, would he be rolling with advantage here?
Of course, certainly so. Certainly so.
And we've just defeated them.
They are quite afraid, so most certainly roll with the advantage.
So yeah, the Lord Arbiter looks very intimidating right now.
Yes.
So like he's got his cane like one-handed over his shoulder. He's holding this guy by the scruff of the neck against the caravan with the kite shield arm. And he's just giving him the thing is he's not got any like expression on his face. He's totally passive, but he's also like holding this dude up with like 100% dad strength. You know?
Yes.
And yeah, it's like a dirty 20. 19 plus.
19 plus.
So, yeah.
That's very good. Which means that you are taken indeed to the secret headquarters of this rebel group that, according to themselves, are the real and legitimate representatives of the people. So, en route, you all need to roll for a wisdom saving throw. And I will tell you why in a minute.
14.
Okay.
21 for me.
Good.
12.
12. And finally, Magister.
I'm trying. 1 second.
Sure.
Now it's opening. Why? No. It's opening the.
Don't worry.
Not rolling?
The magisterial fellow has a wisdom saving throw of +3. So you can roll any die of 20 and add 3 to the result.
You wise as fuck.
Very wise.
the positivist isn't that wise.
Wait. I got a 3, so I got a 6.
It fails. It
I am
fails.
wise, but I'm not lucky.
So the only one that rolled higher than 15 is 2 whale, which means that these fish creatures take you through some secret routes through very lush valleys that, according to the locals, are called the Valleys of Tears. And it's because many battles in the wars between Pacta and Cervanta took place there. Tuail is simply, in this moment, perhaps full of himself or not paying much attention to his surroundings, but everyone else begins to have some remorse and doubts because they see phantasmagorical images of everything that has befallen to these people as a result of the failure of your organization. You see before your own eyes spectral images of battles that took place because the organization didn't do what was required, because the law failed. Maybe it wasn't just as it was said. Or maybe it's because they didn't stick to the letter of the law, which is the common language. Whatever the reason is, whether one or something different could have been said or made to avoid these results, much suffering has been the cause of maybe the failure of the organization, the law, or maybe of human inclinations. As these creatures take you to their leader, you see 2 individuals. First of all, a fish lady who looks very fragile and advanced in age, who is walking with a cane that perhaps has a hidden sword that is sheathed or perhaps not. And next to this fish creature, you see a very wealthy gnome wearing a suit and a tie. The gnome is smoking something because he is sitting on a chair and turns around and raises the eyebrow and puffs the smoke and looks at you. And the fish lady interrogates her subordinates with her gaze and comes closer to them and tells you, "What are these individuals doing in our sacred halls?" "Do not listen to them, my dear," the gnome adds. "It's time to do business. So, did you bring the cargo? If you give us some of those goods, we will give you more weapons for you to be able to continue in your cause."
Hey, I have a couple of out of character questions. First
Sure.
of all, can I roll either history or religion to know if there is any precedent for the hierarchy of my organization, which I have absolute trust in, making these sorts of errors?
Sure. Roll for a history check.
Which is going to history, not religion, because it is a religious organization as well.
Yes,
I
you
think
can
you-
choose either. Choose either the one of your preference.
History is an 8, so I have no historical knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have an 18 on religion, so there might be some theological representations of the failure of men in these sorts of organizations. What have we got?
So what you have is the following. First of all, that sometimes the interpretation precisely of what the mandate is had led to suffering. For example, sometimes in some prior events, the organization understood and interpreted that the protection of civilians is beyond the scope of the mandate, and therefore the organization did not intervene when it was aware of the fact that an attack against civilians was about to take place. Or also when the organization simply said that a neutral position was about being simply silent and just a witness to what is agreed upon. And therefore, they somehow endorsed agreements that were entered into on a very different footing, and indeed in which one of the sides, such as Pacta, was greatly benefited to an extent that entailed, well, the deprivation of much territory and many resources.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we know that this has happened, and I've got a knowledge of the history of the organization from a theological perspective, at the fact that sometimes these things fail.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily a failing of the law, that's a failing of people.
Yes.
And I can cope with that. That's cool. Second question, can I roll insight to look to get an understanding of just exactly how much like this is a smarmy, conniving CIA person in the known?
Of course. Feel free to roll it, and I am glad that you asked for. Yes.
22.
So, what you notice is that the gnome is constantly looking at his very expensive watches, which is not just a single one on his wrist, but actually he has like many of them encrusted with emeralds and lots of jewelry. He looks at his wallet, he takes it, making sure that no one has taken any bill or coin from it, and is constantly impatient, and time is business for this guy. And this guy is looking and telling the elderly fish woman, well, we have, my dear, to do business, otherwise we will look a better partner. And rest assured, we are going to easily find any other person with whom we can do business, dear.
Okay, right. So, knowing all of this, can I use, in a creative RPG role-playing kind of way, my last remaining key point to use Step of the Wind to get a very quick step and grab this guy, lift him up and say, you, sir, are a knave, and engaged in injustice and exploitation of the innocent, and then headbutt him?
Yes, you may.
Okay, what do you want me to roll for at this point in time on that?
So roll an attack.
Just the attack roll on the
That's
headbutt?
correct, yes. Anything higher than AC 10 would hit.
I believe a 19 will do the job.
And then, as you headbutt the poor gnome who is bleeding and says, my nose job! It took a long time, what the fuck are you doing? The elderly woman looks with a panicked look at you and says, but that company is the one that is giving and supplying us with the means to further our freedom wars. What are you doing?
Your freedom will be wrought through justice, which means coming to justice with clean hands. Dealing with exploitative knaves such as this is not the hand of justice, and righteousness does not brook such exploitation of your people. And then again, just punch the gnome.
And as you punch the gnome, the woman says, how dare you say that? The supposed government has done nothing for our people but simply honor a treaty that is clearly exploitative and that is clearly unjust. The only means that we have is to ignore an international law that was entered into against our will. The only things... Yes.
I'm going to try and diffuse this, so I'm going to go up to our monk friend and just put my hand on their shoulder and just say, enough. Let's hear what they have to say first.
I'm going to turn around and hand the gnome to the Lord Arbiter.
Yeah, I take the gnome.
Yes.
And then as I gently put them back down where they were sitting.
Yes.
I'm leaning on my cane as I do this with one hand. Again, #dad strength. And the cane handle is at their eye level. And as I set them down, I quickly flick the button that transforms it into a sword on and off again. So it just goes like that.
Making it evident, yes.
And as I pat the gnome on the shoulder and I say, let us hope they speak plainly.
So I'm in the back, leaning against the column, like looking at all this, like with a way of saying like, oh, these guys, and like I already know what the solution is, and I'm just waiting for the opportunity to just say it.
I am just shocked. I have clearly lost control of Usa Bellum, and I am just hoping for the best right now. I am just there, just trying to get my report and get out.
The gnome looks at all of you and, looking at Jusabellum, tells her, "How dare you! We are the only ones that have stood by the side of these oppressed, downtrodden people, providing them with the means to help themselves while everyone else..."
How much have you lined your pockets by forcing them into criminal brigandage for your benefit?
"I think," the fishwoman says, "I can answer to that. We simply entered into a contract allowing them to extract resources from this land in which we stand that is wrongfully being claimed by Pacta in exchange for their supplies of weapons. And, indeed, most of the lands that were left for our people after the war with Pacta are unproductive. We cannot grow anything there. This is the only way in which you can have decent living conditions, by reclaiming..."
And yet your people still starve.
What do
If
you...
I may.
I've done
if I
battle
may,
with your people. Yeah, please.
Lady
I've
Yusa,
got no time for this disgusting scenario.
I think what's going on is perhaps something that we are not being able to see. In that the rules that you hold so much in favor, Lord Arbiter, have worked the way they should work for the benefit of the people that are represented in our institution, not for this lady's people, who are clearly trying to survive in an environment that is not designed to even recognize them. If we are going to move forward with our mission in any way, if we're going to be successful in any way, we need to have this community recognized as a specially protected community. Ideally, into the future, perhaps even its own government. We cannot continue to assume that this is a bilateral issue between two countries, because there's clearly a third party that has been ignored for probably centuries, and it is about time that our institution recognizes that and accepts that the rules have failed these people. Maybe they are working the way they are supposed to. Maybe they are supposed to fail these people. It is our job, and I know Isabella Bellum will support me on this. Maybe it is our job to find justice, but not just any justice. The justice that is that promotes the most amount of social justice for these people. So let us do that. Let us talk with our organization, reveal the identity of these fish people, and grant them protected status. Prevent Pacta from coming in and killing innocent people, and regulating that they should be in control of their own destinies and self-determination. Are we done? Can we go home?
Can I punch the thieving gnome again?
You may not.
Yeah, I actually have no love for him.
Again. No, you may not.
Yeah, I tried to say to Jus that, well, actually, this is going not to look good on the report. Just don't do that. Thank you.
I do, however, turn to the thieving gnome and say, what company do you represent?
"The Western Esmeraldian Company, dear."
Right, so would I know, sort of, is this something that Vivendi would know? Are they a registered company in Pacta?
They are a subsidiary company of a parent company from the former colonial empire, but having different legal personality. The subsidiary works as a foreign Pactan investor in Cervandan territory.
All right, I know a shit ton about this company, apparently. Okay, I didn't even have to roll for that. Fantastic.
Yep.
So just make sure I've got this right. So this slimy little dude,
Yes.
it represents a Pacton subsidiary of a company that exists in the third state, in the third former metropolitan state,
Yes.
which is itself investing in the territory of what is now Savanda.
That is correct.
Right, okay. And do I know, and I'm perfectly happy to roll for this, do I know the parent company, whether there are any links between this parent company and the government of this, I don't know the name of the metropolitan state.
You will have to roll for an investigation check in order to know this.
Right, would be investigation or history?
Up to you.
Right, I would rather history because my bonus to
Right.
that is slightly better.
Yes.
Come on, no whammies. I will use my inspiration.
Okay.
Much better, dirty 20.
So what you do know is that the parent company from the colonial empire, the metropolis, has to a very large extent public state funding. So it has both private and public funding. Whether that makes it an agent of the state or not, per ILC articles, would be in the negative. According to others, not necessarily the case, but yeah.
Right. If I know that, right, then at that point, this pushes the arbiter's buttons, right? So at that point, he turns the cane back into a sword again, points it at the gnome, and says, "The situation has changed materially, Magistrate Fellow. This is an agent of a foreign power engaged in insurgency funding in a sovereign polity. It is under the auspices of our," and I turn back to the gnome, "it is under the auspices of our organization. I arrest you, sir."
The guy looks at you.
Please resist. Please resist.
The gnome looks at you and says, "You uncivilized barbarians do not even know what the law appropriately is. We have our own legal personality. It is impossible for us to be regarded as anything but different from the state that you claim we represent. Therefore, you are engaging in a deprivation of liberty, violating my very human rights."
I
A
draw
scoundrel.
I draw myself up to full 6 foot in height and just say, "Sir, you can presume that I am familiar with the law." And then I turn to the right hand and I say, "Cuff him."
And at that point in time, I will step in and say, "Are you resisting arrest?"
I am resisting my...
Bang!
The gnome looks... Yes.
Good riddance.
That's what I heard.
I heard I'm resisting.
The gnome says, "I invoke habeas corpus, you scoundrels and criminals."
I will bring you before the courts happily as soon as you stop resisting arrest. Would you like to continue resisting arrest, or would you like to come peacefully?
I refuse to forcefully resist this enforced disappearance that you are inflicting against me. You
I
have
heard
no
that you
legit...
are continuing to refuse to be arrested. Is this correct?
I refuse to acknowledge...
Bang!
The
Is he
gnome...
unconscious yet?
The gnome ends up falling unconscious after
Great.
such
At that point in
repeated
time, I
beatings.
will restrain him and say, "I render him into your custody, Lord Arbiter."
In which case, I turn to the magisterial fellow and well, you're a halfling, right? So you probably can't just straight up carry this dude.
Yeah.
So, but I deposit him in front of you and I say, "She is the law here."
I am
But
just
you will all
terrified.
remember that I asked him if he was resisting arrest, and he kept saying, "I am resisting."
Oh, I made a note.
At which
I
point...
am just-
Yeah.
I am I just look at it. I'm paralyzed. I no longer take notes. I now just try to. I look at Lord Arbiter. I'm like, what do you want me to do with that?
This insurgent has resisted the lawful arrest powers of the Arbiters Guild. It is now your responsibility to accompany him to a place of justice where this case will be further investigated with the full powers of our organization. And then I sort of wave very dismissively to everyone else in the clearing, and I say, and what happens here is to a certain extent not our concern. We must simply report it to the government of Pacta, and they will take the matter further.
Not our concern. An army is coming, claiming that these people are actors of Sunt when they are not. They are an independent people. They will be destroyed.
Under the rule, actors of the former imperial power, and therefore can be considered a hostile occupying force.
My questions to both of you, are they not, by virtue of the peace treaty and the holy law, citizens of Pacta who are, the Pactan government is obliged to ensure that they have their living requirements met as is just and right? And Pacta only said that they were going to start sending an army if the caravan didn't get through. We saw to it that the caravan got through. So why don't we go and tell Pacta to engage in its lawful duty to its citizens as is right and just, while also returning this thieving scum of a gnome who is apparently a foreign insurgent, knew he was shifty, before a court as he so requested while resisting arrest.
I absolutely agree with that. I would just add that these people, these fish people, need recognition from our organization.
Ian, can I ask, does this international legal system in this fictional world have anything like an international Bill of Rights?
Yes.
I mean, is this stuff that it does?
It does, right? Yes. It does.
Right. And what's the extent of that? So I'm assuming this is something we all know.
Something
right?
similar to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights you can think of. But in fact, the fish lady looks at all of you and tells you, how can you pretend that we consider ourselves citizens or subjects of Pacta? Actually, we are migrants, nomads. Many of us were born in Servanda, have come here. Some of us simply want to claim and liberate our lands. Many of us refuse to acknowledge the system that was imposed on us against our will. Just as you claim the Empire is a foreign force, Pacta is as foreign to us as the Empire is.
Under the terms
why
of the
they need
treaty,
recognition.
it's not our concern.
But I, for instance, am bringing many freedom fighters from Servanda. We are one same people. You cannot say that all of us are from Pacta.
A question, does the Bill of Rights have an article like on self-determination of peoples?
It does, yes.
Is it similar to, like,
think
our
of
own?
Most standards that are quite similar to the ones we have at the moment in our world.
Lord Arbiter, then I approach the Lord Arbiter. Would you not conclude, therefore, that from the Bill of Rights in the rules, these people have a right to self-determination that needs to be upheld by the organization, and so they require recognition under the rules? This is, parenthesis, this is just my character using the master's tools to bring down the master's house.
Sorry. When the fish woman talks about freedom fighters, I yell and I'm like, so it was war of liberation, not preparation. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, please continue.
I turn to their leader. Well, I don't think we've got her name yet, have we?
You haven't, no.
No, I was too busy punching a gnome.
Right, okay. So I just say, Madam, am I to understand that you left the sovereign territory of Servanda willfully?
That is correct.
then I turn
No,
to
I
Wales
actually,
and I
that
say,
is, no, and he
they have
interrupt
the
you.
right to self-determination indeed within
She-
the sovereign territory of Savanda. And there, our involvement in this matter ends.
Now that I think it twice, I think that you are quite mistaken. I am still under the rightful territory of Servanda. I have never left it because the so-called treaty under which these lands are Pactian is invalid. An unequal treaty has no legitimacy.
At least for now, recognition is in order. I think we can all agree on that. Whether they need to go back to Servanda or they impact that, we can decide that later. But for now, we need to go to our organization and recognize these people and tell the Pactans not to attack.
I
Madam,
agree.
Madam,
Yes.
would you agree that engagement in diplomacy with the support of the organization to resolve this would be preferable to bloodshed?
I do.
With the magisterial fellows agreement, would you, with an honor guard, be willing to accompany us to the organization so that we can engage in this process as is just and moral and right, rather than resorting to sometimes necessary, pointing very briefly at the unconscious gnome, violence?
The woman thinks it carefully, ponders, and then, raising her gaze, meets yours almost defiantly and tells you, I concede that perhaps a suspension of hostilities is in order to try to reach a different way of settling things. If you guarantee you my protection, I will gladly go with you to try to negotiate.
Your protection is right and proper and just, and cracking of fists, and I would be happy to guarantee your safety for such a mission of peace, with the magisterial fellows' approval, as it is her mission that we are here for.
I think True Ale is like in the back of his mind thinking like this system doesn't work, and I totally see why these people are rebelling, and like next episode of Lord Arbiters will be like me with starting a revolution with the fish people.
And with that, you have managed. Yes.
The magisterial fellow was saying something. Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. I just look at the fishwoman and say, can you just repeat that you're ceasing your hostilities? Can I record that?
I confirm that I conditionally suspend hostilities until the moment in which it is evident that negotiations will not be fruitful, my dear.
Okay.
That works.
Okay, we have done with conditionally before. All right, it's going to be an awfully long report, but yeah, let's come on in. We can take you to your. But thank you so much. And who's going to take care of the gnome? I'm not touching him.
I am happy to take care of him, especially if he decides to continue resisting.
Oh, I am fine with that. I am too small to carry him, and I just dissociate.
I'm too weak to punch him.
I am just going to pick him up, and fireman's lift over the shoulder, in such a way that his head regularly kind of just uncomfortably bashes against some of the buckles on the vest that I'm wearing.
Please don't kill this guy.
And with this, you head and you make your way back towards Spatium, the capital of Pacta, and as the sun rises, so rises the hope of a possible peace at the horizon. And with this, we conclude today's session, so thank you very much, everyone.
Yay! Peace and security!
International law does not work!
Thank God we're not in charge of negotiating anything.